All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the April 19th, 2022 council meeting. As a reminder, this meeting is live streamed, recorded, and available on the internet by visiting the Town of Parry Sound's website at www.parrysound.ca. And also acknowledge that we're on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people under the Robinson-Huron Treaty and the waterways traveled by the Métis of this region. Prior to the open session, council met for a brief closed session. It was moved by Councillor McCann and seconded by Councillor Horn, I believe, that pursuant to section 239(2) and 3 of the Municipal Act SO 2001 C25 as amended, Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound moves to a meeting closed to the public in order to address matters pertaining to C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for municipal or local board purposes, municipal boundary proposal. E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, contract or work on town property. And K, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, municipal boundary proposal. And that meeting was held. And so this time I've got a couple of presentations to make. And first one is a thank you to Norm Miller, our MPP. So Norm, if you want to turn your camera on there so that people can see you, that would be great.
I would, okay.
Oh,
it says that it's being
internet issues.
Apparently, okay, here we go. I think it's on now.
Oh, it is. It's good now. There you go.
Good to see everyone.
Good to see you.
See you, Norm.
So I'd like to take this opportunity to honor Norm Miller with appreciation for his more than 20 years of continuous service to the citizens of Parry Sound as an elected member of provincial parliament for Parry Sound, Muskoka. Norm, I'd like to address you directly with our appreciation for your service in both government and in opposition. Thank you for your efforts in obtaining fair funding for small and medium-sized hospitals. This is a big boost for our West Parry Sound Health Center. Thank you for advocating for paved shoulders on secondary highways, making it safer for cyclists. Thank you for your efforts towards the potential for decreased costs of liability insurance for snow removal companies. We take it for granted in the Parry Sound Muskoka snow belt that there will always be a market for snow removal. But if the cost of liability insurance becomes too great due to unrestricted litigation, that might not be the case. So thank you. And thank you for your advocacy on environmental issues close to home for increasing recycling and composting. The Keeping Polystyrene Out of Ontario Lakes and Rivers Act passed last year requires that dock foam be fully encapsulated. This is one of the good practical building blocks of sound environmental stewardship. And thank you for taking this initiative and shepherding it through the legislature. Last year, we joined together in the announcement of the receipt of joint federal and provincial funding of $23.3 million towards the long-awaited Pool Recreation Center. 10.6 million of that was provincial funding. And thank you for your efforts on behalf in helping to secure that funding. I know there was a lot of advocacy and networking that you did in the background, so it was really appreciated. So, and the other thing I want to mention too is that when we've had deputations, whether it's this like Town of Parry Sound or other municipalities or collectively, you were there to sit with us and be part of that delegation, and that support goes a long way in those delegation meetings, and we really do appreciate it. So with that, I offer congratulations on your upcoming retirement and my best wishes for many years of enjoying life beyond the political arena. So we just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for that your kind words and noting some of the things I've done over my past 21 years. I really appreciate that. And I don't think if I had taken this job, I would live in the Parry Sound area. I probably wouldn't have been that familiar with it. So that was one of the real pluses for being MVP is I now live in Parry Sound. So, and really happy to do so. And it's such a beautiful area. And it has been a real honor and privilege to be the MPP for Parry Sound Muskoka the past 21 years. And I've thoroughly enjoyed it and enjoyed getting to meet all of you and other representatives around the region to see how hard you're working for the betterment of all the people you represent. So I really appreciate you taking the time today out of your meeting to thank me, and I am looking forward to a few weeks from now when I will be retired and get to enjoy all that Parry Sound and area has to offer. So I'm quite keen. You could do something about spring coming soon, Mr. Mayor. That would be appreciated.
Yeah, maybe a resolution, right?
But no, I really appreciate you taking the time, and it's been a privilege to work with all of you, and you're all doing a great job.
Well, thank you. Anyway, you have a great evening, and once summer gets here, you're going to have a summer to enjoy. And so wish you and your family all the best. Right?
Thanks a lot, Mayor and Council. That's really kind of you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye. Okay, next presentation I need to make is on Earth Day. And I remind members of the public that this Friday, April 22nd is Earth Day. With spring almost here, the accumulation of the winter's worth of litter is exposed. The town is supporting groups and individuals in litter cleanups around our community with Pitch in Parry Sound. Organize a litter cleanup during this week and register with the town of Parry Sound to receive free pitch-in garbage bags and gloves. Our park staff will even pick up your bags at the end of your cleanup for disposal. And to register your cleanup, visit www.parrysound.ca/Earth Day. Another way to reduce waste going into our landfill and therefore reducing methane gas and costs to all taxpayers is by eliminating food waste going into your garbage. A means to do that is by purchasing from the town a food recycler, which is a countertop kitchen appliance. The food recycler takes any kitchen or food waste, vegetable, meat, dairy, etc., and turns it into dry, sterile soil supplement. As the town is part of a pilot program, you can purchase food recycler for $150. This appliance normally retails for about $500. You can contact the town office ASAP to add your name to the list for the purchase. They are moving reasonably quickly since that deputation that we had. And finally, let's see if we can reduce our electricity consumption on Earth Day. Our electrical provider, Lakeland Power, will be tracking the consumption in Parry Sound before, during, and after Earth Day and comparing it to previous years. Reducing electrical consumption on one day is a small thing, but it can give us an idea of what we can achieve if we put our minds to it. So please join me in a conscious effort to reduce electrical use on Friday, April the 22nd, which is Earth Day. And those are presentations. Okay, is there any prioritization or additions to the agenda? Not seeing any. May I have a mover and seconder for the agenda, please? Councillor McCann, Councillor Keith. The council agenda for April 19th, 2022 be approved as circulated. Anyone opposed to that? Nope. Okay. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Councillor Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do for item 951, Community Living Month, May 2022, as Community Living Parry Sound is my employer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other disclosures? No. Okay. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a few minutes to hold an electronic public meeting to hear any interested persons with regard to a proposed consent application for a lot creation and easement under section 53 of the Planning Act. May I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the regular meeting? Councillor Burden and Councillor Horn, that we do now adjourn the regular meeting and declare the public meeting open. Anyone opposed to that? Nope. Okay. Ms. Johnson, could you explain how the public was notified of consent application B 22-03 Oldham / Winifred?
Your Worship, notice was given by prepaid first-class mail to the required prescribed agencies and property owners within 60 meters. It was posted on the property and was also placed on the town's website. Therefore, notice is considered to be provided in accordance with the Planning Act.
Good, thank you. Mr. Thompson, could you explain the purpose of the proposed consent application?
Your Worship, the purpose of the application is to reconfigure lots 46 and 47 in Plan 42M 648 to allow each lot to be separately conveyable. There is currently one lot as lots 46 and 47 merged since the subdivision was originally approved. In addition, the application would include rights of way over the rear of each property to provide access to those lands. The property proposed was attached to the circulated notice.
Okay, thank you. In accordance with the Planning Act, Council will consider all matters placed before it prior to granting a consent. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of Council of the Corporation of the Town of Parry Sound in respect to a proposed consent does not make written submissions to Council before it provides or refuses to provide a provisional consent, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss the appeal. As this is an electronic public meeting under Planning Act due to COVID-19, we'll call upon those in electronic attendance if they wish to comment. Please make sure that you have your screen on and that you signal the camera and or raise your hand if you wish to speak. And the moderator will call out individuals when it's their turn to speak. So please keep your microphone muted until it's your turn. So at this time, does anyone wish to speak in favor of the proposed application for consent? If so, please identify yourself by name and give your address. Okay, I will ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of this proposed application for consent? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone coming forward. So I'll move to the next, which is, does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this proposed application for consent? Okay, I will ask one more time. Does anyone wish to speak in opposition to this proposed application for consent? I'm not seeing anyone, so coming forward, thank you. Mr. Thompson, have there been any letters received as a result of this notice?
No letters have been received.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I need a mover and seconder to declare the public meeting closed. Councillor McCann and Councillor Borneman, that we do now declare the public meeting closed. Anyone opposed to that? Nope. Okay, that's carried. We're back into the regular agenda. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes of April 5th? Councillor Burden, Councillor Horn, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held April 5th, 2022 be approved as circulated. Any comments or questions on those minutes? No? Okay, anyone opposed to passing the minutes? No one's opposed, that's carried. Questions of staff? Councillor, okay, Councillor McCann, then Councillor Horn, and then Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For Mr. Kearns, the signs that we have throughout town that measure oncoming traffic, the speed, and the ones that flash when you're going too fast, I've noticed that a number of them are working intermittently. Are we having issues with them, or are they just plain shut off from time to time? What, just kind of curious as to know. Lately, it seems they haven't been functioning.
Through your worship. So it seems they are battery powered, so they do require to be changed. I did notice the same. So staff will be managing those batteries a little bit more closely. And I did notice that the one heading towards the south end of town on Bow Street, I thought the same thing at one point, but it was actually kind of the angle that it was sitting in the light, because it was very faint, but it was still functioning. But we will endeavor to get those batteries looked after quickly and make sure that the signs are placed appropriately so that they're easily visible.
I noticed the one on Albert Street. Is that a problematic street, or are people just in a hurry to get to work at the hospital?
So through your worship, it's not always about the speed. We do collect data with those signs, so they do afford us the opportunity to update our traffic counts and understand better some of the traffic patterns through town as well.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Horn.
Thank you. Just a question for Mr. Cairns. Just an update for the sinkhole that is on the fitness trail by the Stocky Center. Thanks.
Yes, through your worship. So we are aware, and staff did barricade it to make the users of the trail aware. Unfortunately, we can't get down there right now with the necessary equipment, or we will cause much more damage to the trail. So we're essentially waiting for spring to kick into full gear, hopefully dry up the trail and allow us to get down there to mitigate that.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions. First, for Ms. Johnson, when will those who are interested in the upcoming municipal election be able to pick up packages, Ms. Johnson?
They'll be ready on May 2nd.
And anyone can drop into the office and get one, I assume.
That's correct. Between during our business hours, 8:30 to 4:30.
Thank you. Next for Mr. Cairns. Mike, I see walking around town, it's like a color blinded test. There's green paint, blue paint, yellow paint, depending on where you look. What's happening with this?
Through your worship. So those are markings for locates for various reasons. Oftentimes there'll be utilities requesting locates in order to perform construction work. It may be our own forces. So every time that's a call before you dig initiative, essentially, to locate the underground infrastructure before anything happens in terms of construction or excavation.
Thank you. And my last one, Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if this is for Mr. Harris or Chief Thompson. I'm wondering if someone can provide us with an update as to where we are in the recruitment of a planner.
Through you to Councillor Barnwell, I think Mr. Thompson's in the best position to answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. This has been a difficult recruitment for us. I think you're all aware of that. We've tried to keep you updated via email at some times. However, it's been difficult. It's been going on since about the middle of November now. Currently, we are dealing with 2 applicants who are interested in the position, and we're going through due diligence with them at this time. The position of planner is extremely competitive throughout the province. There are many advertisements for planners right now. Before Taylor moved on to Seguin had been looking for a long time for a planner themselves. And it was an excellent opportunity for Taylor to move into with some more responsibilities. So that's great for him. And right now, Archipelago is also looking for a planner. So in our particular area, there are not people who have the qualifications to be able to function these jobs. So people do have to move into the area. That has been one of the hurdles for individuals, not the fact that Parry Sound is not an area they want to be, but that there are some significant logistics to making a move such as that across the province or around the province to come to our area. So we're hopeful that we have 2 good candidates that we're working on right now, and that I hope I will be pleased to let you know that we're moving forward with the process in a more concrete way in the next couple of weeks. But when we bring someone in, we want to make sure that they are going to be committed to the community, as we don't, want to have too fast of a turnover. Obviously, with young people, they don't stay in positions as long now as maybe they used to. However, we want to make sure that this is the right person for the community and that we're the right organization for the person as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keith, you're next.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had 2 questions. I think Mr. Thompson he covered one quite well. I just want to comment though on his comment, which is personally, I think the right fit for our town is really important. So I'm hoping one of these people will be the right fit, because it's so important. My next question though is for Mr. Cairns, a couple of questions. One has to do with, I believe it's on William Street towards the north end. I noticed in my travels that it seems to be there's a number of spots where I did not go right up and inspect, but it looks like piles maybe in bags of earth. Is there a plan that's going on there? Because they were in a number of locations. That's my one question.
Through Your Worship, I believe those are for utility pole replacements. And I would speculate that it's Lakeland perhaps that is doing the work there. So that's typically they will pre-stage to be able to do that work.
Okay, well, at least that gives me some idea. Number 2 question is in reference to, again, that Cascade Street railing. I'm wondering, has there been an examination? Is there a way that railing can be improved and be made to be lovely?
Yes, through Your Worship. So we did have a look at it. We believe we understand where that particular blemish came from on the railing, and we do have a plan between buffing and treating the stainless steel to bring it back to its glory.
By summertime, can I expect that it'll be just beautiful?
That is our hope. Hopefully it'll be a lot sooner than that, quite frankly.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Councillor Borneman question, or one of his questions just sort of prompted my memory to ask about the recruitment of lifeguards for Wabano Park Beach, and how is that coming along? I don't know who can answer that.
Through Your Worship. So it hasn't been long. Staff did directly after that last meeting where staff received that direction. The advertisements went back out, and I did notice that it's been in a few more locations. So it's ongoing, and I believe yeah, there was a deadline, I believe, of the third week in May. And we should have an update definitely by then. But the recruitment was put into full speed mode. And so we're hopeful that that we'll be able to fill those positions. As Chief Thompson mentioned, I think, you know, obviously the planner position is quite different, but recruitment in general. And we're having this issue municipally, even with students. It's very difficult to recruit numbers, as everyone did previously for all positions. And just anecdotally, I think that goes in a lot of workplaces right now. So again, if there's youth out there working or looking for work, I encourage them to apply.
Make the phone call. It is a widespread challenge indeed. Thanks again.
Okay, any other questions of staff? Nope. Okay, all right, thank you. Correspondence, Ms. Johnson?
Your worship, there is no correspondence this evening.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So we'll go to deputations then, and we have from the Near North Crime Stoppers, we have board member Mark Allen and police coordinator Jean Lemieux.
Thank you, Worship. My name is Mark Allen, and as you said, we have our police coordinator, Jean Lemieux, with us tonight. And I'd also like to introduce you to Peter. Sorry, am I free to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay,
yeah,
sorry.
Thank
I'd
you.
also like to introduce Peter Shaggett, who's a very new member to our board. And Peter represents West Parry Sound. He's a resident of Seguin, and Peter is sitting in with us tonight. So I'm the East Parry Sound member. I'm a resident of Magnetawan. Prior to retirement, actually all three of us are retired police officers. I spent nearly 35 years with the OPP. Much of my career was spent in detachments. Not unlike Parry Sound, I was detachment commander for 13 years down in Alliston. So I'm very familiar with working closely with communities on the issues of community safety, crime prevention, and community policing. And I can tell you that in my final 7 years of my career, I did spend it in headquarters in Aurelia, where I was the commander of crime prevention for the OPP, and Crime Stoppers fell under my portfolio of programs. And it was, in my view, as a police officer, both as a frontline officer for many years, conducting investigations, as a manager running a detachment, and as a senior officer working out of headquarters, I can tell you that it's one of the most effective programs that I ever experienced in my police career. So in my retirement, I'm now very much enjoying my working at the grassroots level with the Near North Crime Stoppers Board. And just before I turn it over to Jean, our police coordinator, I'd also like to say I'm very, very proud that I have a son and a daughter-in-law who are both members of the OPP working out at West Parry Sound Detachment. So over to Jean for a quick PowerPoint about how the Crime Stoppers program works, and then hopefully a bit of a Q&A with council following that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Welcome, Jean.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible to share my screen?
Should be able to, yeah.
Okay. Can you see this? The
Not yet.
PowerPoint? Not yet. Trying to get it here. So do I have the authorization to share the screen from who? Okay, here we go. Okay, I got it here.
Okay.
Can you see it now?
We got it now.
All right, excellent. Thank you very much. Sorry about that. Technology in this day and age. I just want again to reiterate what Mark was saying. We truly appreciate the opportunity to give a quick presentation on Crime Stoppers. We've been doing several municipalities in our district in Near North just to explain what the Crime Stoppers is about. And I'm sure if we were in person, I would ask who knows about Crime Stoppers. I'm sure a lot of you would know well, I've heard about Crime Stoppers. What does it really do? So this is what I'm going to try to do for the next few minutes. Crime Stoppers is, excuse me, if I can get my, here we go. So Crime Stoppers is a partnership really of the public, the police, and the media in providing the citizen an opportunity to provide information eventually to the police on criminal activities, whatever they've seen or they've heard, while remaining anonymous. And I want to stress the fact that Crime Stoppers is totally anonymous, and that is why the program works so well. So how does the public and the police and the media get involved in that? Well, of course, the public is when they see or they have information on criminal activities, and for whatever reason they don't want to talk directly to a police officer, they can use Crime Stoppers to provide that information. The media assists at Crime Stoppers in publicizing when we put out a crime of the week, for example, or an unsolved crime that the police, the OPP detachment, they ask us. So we'll go to the media, and they're very good with Crime Stoppers. We don't have to pay too much money. Actually, we don't pay, and they will publicize, try to get the public to provide the information. And the police, of course, the information that comes to us goes directly to the police, the appropriate police agency, and they will investigate and reply back to us with the result of the investigation, so we can let the tipster know what happened. The philosophy of Crime Stoppers is that for every crime that is committed, someone other than the offender, other than the criminal, knows about it, has information, and for certain reasons, some people are not comfortable in speaking with the police, so they can provide information to Crime Stoppers. How it started was in 1976. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit ahead here. In 1976, in Albuquerque, New Mexico. To make a long story short, there was an armed robbery in a gas station, and eventually the people committing the robbery, they killed the attendant, and the investigation was at a standstill. And the investigator, who by the way was a Canadian, Detective McAleese, who worked in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time, he figured that those were the days before cameras everywhere, so they had no lead, and they appealed to the public. So what they did, with the assistance of the media, they recreated the crime scene. They aired it on TV and on the radio and all over the place, and asking the people to submit or if they had information, to give them the information through an anonymous telephone line. And within 17 hours, that crime was solved. That's the idea of Crime Stoppers. That's how it started. In Canada, we started in 1988, and right now we're everywhere in Canada. Anywhere in Canada, you can submit a tip, either on the phone, and I'll give you the phone number later, or through the web tips, and the information will be gathered and will be disseminated to the police. We have in the province of Ontario 37 individual programs. As Mark mentioned, the program it's not a police program. It is run by a board of volunteers. I am working for a police department as a coordinator. So that means my job is during the day, I take the phone calls, the tips that come in, and I go through every tip that is submitted online, and I make sure that it goes through the appropriate police agency. How it works is people can either call the 1-800-222-8477 number, or they can go online near North Crime Stoppers, or even if you just Google Crime Stoppers, you will get on the page where it says submit the tip. The forms comes up and you fill as much information as you can. And once you hit the send button, you will be provided with a tip number and a private password so you can check on your tips. Now, people will say, I can understand on the phone, it's totally anonymous, because when I get the information, I write it down, I write up a report and send it to the police. How can it be anonymous online? It is the system, and it is safe. The way the system is, as soon as you hit the submit the tip button to send the tip, it goes to two different servers. where it's encoded, goes to the second one, and eventually reach my office, for example, my screen. So if I ever want to find out where the information came from, all what I'm gonna get is the address, the email address of the server. So it is totally anonymous. Like I mentioned, Crime Stoppers prides itself with anonymity. And as a matter of fact, the Supreme Court of Canada, there have been 3 rulings in the Supreme Court of Canada over the last 20 years, basically saying that the information that is provided to Crime Stoppers is not disclosable in court. So it is totally anonymous. So the person provides the information, I vet the information, I make sure that it goes to the appropriate detachment, for example, of the OPP or the conservation. We work with conservation officers, different detachment of the OPP, and the investigators will do their investigation. Sometimes that little piece of information that is provided is the missing puzzle in the big picture to solve a crime. They will let us know if the information was successful, and should it be successful, then the person that provided the information is reward eligible. Now, Crime Stoppers offer rewards between $50 and the maximum is $2,000. It's not much money, but it's just enough that it may pique the interest of some people that may have information to provide that crucial information to the police through Crime Stoppers. 70 to 75% of the people that do provide valuable information that is successful, that assists the police, they don't want the reward. So the information is there. We provide it to the police. Here's, if you look at our website, it says you can either call in at the 1-800 number on top. You can submit online. If you click on this submit a tip, the forms will come down and you just fill in the form, or through mobile on your phone, you can provide that information to Crime Stoppers. Just a little bit of statistics. Since the inception of the program in Near North, and by the way, Near North Crime Stoppers covers the entire district of Nipissing and Parry Sound. So your municipality is right within our area. This is the number of tips that we have received at the end of March of this year. So over 21,000 tips. $255,000 of rewards have been approved. $4.4 million of property and cash has been recovered by the police as a result of information provided through Crime Stoppers. And this is another big number. $57.5 million worth of drugs has been taken off the streets of our communities because of information that was provided to Crime Stoppers. So as you can see, it is very successful. We are in doing a lot of community events. We are there participating. Here are just some of the pictures that we have. Crime Stoppers does not receive funding from any government agencies, with the exception of the after-hour telephone answering service. Of course, the coordinators, we cannot be in the office 24 hours a day, and people do call after 4 o'clock or after 5 o'clock during the night. So we have been able to secure from the provincial government a grant for the last 5 or 6 years, where we have our telephone lines are going to this answering service. So it's answered 24 hours a day. And they also monitor our web tips. So through the internet, they are able to monitor the tips just in case something has to be acted on right away. So that's the grant that we have. Everything else to pay for the equipment, the promotion of the programs, or any activities that we want to conduct is money that is raised through fundraising activities by the board members of Near North Crime Stoppers. So they do work very hard in the communities, promoting Crime Stoppers as a crime prevention tool, but as well as raising money. Unfortunately, like everybody else, since COVID hit, we have not been able to have our regular fundraising activities where we normally hold every second year a jail-a-thon. We have our annual golf tournament and so on. The only thing that allowed us to continue is we have 3 locations in our area where we have the proceeds of Nevada ticket sales. So that has assisted us and the board to continue on with the activities. Here are some signage that are available So if you travel through the area, some municipalities have had those signs up, and Sturgeon Falls, Corbeil area, Powassan, and so on. I mentioned about our fundraising activity. We have decided, the board has decided at the meeting last week to hold the annual golf tournament this coming August 2022 at the Highview Golf Course in Powassan area. So if you receive an invitation or you're a golfer, you'd like to participate, we will have the information available. I mentioned before that the Crime Stoppers is run by a board of volunteers. So these are some of the volunteers on the board. Right now there are 15 members volunteer on the board. Some retired police officer like Mark and Peter, and Wendy is another one. We have retired school teacher. We have active young people in the community that are participating. So there's from different walks of life, and they are the tool. They are the most important tool within Crime Stoppers program is the board of volunteers. So they run the program, they run the fundraising activities, and they are the one that decides on the rewards to be paid. So here's our telephone number, 1-800-222-TIPS or 8477, or you go online, you can submit the tip information. It is all available there. On that, I know this is a very quick, this is our area. So I mentioned the District of Nipissing and Parry Sound. And I just want to thank you on behalf of the Board of Crime Stoppers for allowing us to present a little bit about Crime Stoppers, who we are, and what we can do in the community. And if you have any questions, I'm open to answer any of your questions.
Okay, well, thank you. All right, now I can see everybody there. Okay, Councilor McCann.
Yes, thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation tonight. Very interesting. I was surprised at the number of tips and amount of dollars that were paid out in rewards. I was kind of thinking, coming from a guy that likes to watch a lot of Law and Order, how is it that when various tips are submitted, I'm just kind of curious, and maybe this is out of your purview here, but what I guess at some point, when you're investigating a crime, you need some probable cause to get a warrant to do whatever. Are probable causes born out of the tips from Crime Stoppers?
As I mentioned before, Crime Stoppers, the information is one piece of the puzzle. So for example, if you call in Crime Stoppers and you say Jean Lemieux is dealing drugs at such and such an address, the information goes to the police. That's not enough for them to act on it. So they will have to verify that information through other investigative means, but it adds to it. So the information from Crime Stoppers will be added, for example, in their information to obtain a search warrant.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any further questions? I'm not seeing any. Well, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight and making your presentation, and thank you for the work that you're doing. And please extend our best to the committee as well. It is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Have a good evening. Okay, next are reports. So we're starting with Councillor Burden tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Fairly brief report. April 13th, I attended the regular monthly meeting of the Downtown Business Association. Plans are well underway for the Summer Festival on July the 19th. And as it turns out, we found out at this meeting that the Art in the Park is the same weekend. So that those two events should fit together nicely. Parking stands to be a bit of an issue. The good folks down at the Parry Sound, or the storage units down the U-Haul, have offered their parking lot for free parking for people during the event. So that'll be a huge help. Only other event planned this year is the Girlfriends Week. You can mark your calendars for those interested in that, from November 15th to the 21st. And on April the 14th, I attended the regular monthly meeting of the District Social Services Administration Board. All is well there. Nothing really to report from that meeting, and that is my report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Horn.
Good evening, all. On April 6th, I attended the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame committee meeting. And just to let the public know that tickets are on sale to the public for the induction ceremony on Saturday, June 18th. And we'll be inducting athletes Chris Lee and Sarah Sally Manning and builder Peter Wiltman. So once again, the tickets will be on sale at the Bobby Orr Hall of Fame website. So we're looking forward to having the 2020 induction ceremony in 2022. So on April 11th, I attended the Parry Sound Area Chamber of Commerce meeting. And again, discussion, like has been mentioned tonight, revolved around employee recruitment and retention and lack of housing in terms of employers looking to house employees. So the chamber will be speaking with businesses in terms of advocating on their behalf to area municipalities for housing issues and alternatives. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Backman.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Good evening, everyone. On Thursday, April 7th at 10 a.m. to noon, I attended an HR committee meeting for the Parry Sound Public Library. We continue to review application for our CAO's replacement. On Sunday, April 10th through Wednesday, April 13th, I attended the annual Good Roads Association conference held in Toronto. I'll provide a written report for both council and public at our next council meeting on May 3rd. I will say that the conference was well attended, though down from past years, and it was very enlightening, and I look forward to sharing more details with you soon. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, staff, and public. Just one meeting to report on. On Wednesday morning, April 13th, I attended the Parry Sound Public Library monthly board meeting, which was held in person at the library. With the oncoming retirement of our CEO, Rita Orr, we continue to search for her replacement as Councillor Backman just reported. Financial reports were received. The CEO report was received. There was more discussion on the future of our building and the announcement of our summer hours of operation. So just to let you know, from May through till October, the library will be open Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 to 7, Wednesday afternoon from 1 to 7, Friday, 10 to 3, and Saturday, 10 to 2. And the building is closed on Sunday and Monday. Finally, the 2021 audit is underway with the BDO. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Borneman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. On April 12th, I attended a monthly meeting of the Airport Commission. I think I'm going to be saying this for some time, but work is well underway and continuing on the runway. They seem to be making pretty good progress, weather permitting. The Commission also engaged a firm to review and update our strategic plan in an effort to position ourselves as further funding opportunities might come available. And earlier today, I attended an online webinar with IESO, Independent Electrical Systems Operator. These folks are in charge of ensuring an adequate supply and distribution of power through the province. It's a mammoth undertaking to predict and stay ahead of the curve of Ontario's electrical needs, and to be able to secure funding and go through procurement processes in a timeline that allows them to stay one step ahead of the curve. This is complicated in the fairly near term, as Pickering Nuclear Station is set to be retired. So that's a big chunk that needs to be replaced by other sources. It was of note that through the day, this area was identified by them as an area of significant potential growth in the fairly near term. So it's something to pay attention to. We know from our dealings with Lakeland that even on a local level, this is something that all municipalities should be cognizant in moving forward. And that's my report, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keith.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, fellow councillors, staff, and the public. I have nothing to report. I do have a meeting coming up this week, but thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keith. Council, staff, and public. On April 6th, I attended a meeting organized by the Rotary Club of Parry Sound, which was held at the Bob York Community Center. This meeting brought together people and organizations to find out who might be able to do what to help the Ukrainian families when they come to Parry Sound. A really good number of people showed up to the meeting, and I want to thank Linda West from the Rotary Club for organizing the event and everyone that showed up to contribute. I also want to thank our EDO Vlad for everything that he's been working on. I know this is close to home for him, and he's really working hard on this. And anyway, it was an absolutely excellent meeting. It probably could have gone on a lot longer than it did, but it really showed the commitment of this area and the giving nature that we have. So it was really well done. April 10th to the 13th, as Councillor Bachman mentioned, was the Good Roads Conference in Toronto. I attended that one as well. Some highlights, Bruce Katz, he's an author. His talk was on the new localism, and he talked about the way we've dealt with COVID-19, where we travel, our buying patterns, and our connections to each other. And it was a very high-level conversation or talk, but certainly very thought-provoking in what he had to say. Another one was Lisa Kimmel, Chair and CEO of Elderman Canada and Latin America. She talked about trust over the years and studies that were done on levels of trust in different categories, which was interesting, like the workplace where you work or your employer, government, consumer awareness, that sort of thing. It was a good insight into how people's trust levels have changed over the years. Another gentleman was Charles Marhan. He's president of Strong Towns, and Charles is a civil engineer and talked about designing the different ways engineers have designed roads over the years, based on traffic flow and whatever goes. I had to leave that one just a little bit early because we had a delegation. So we had two delegations arranged for Tuesday. One was canceled due to a COVID illness, but Councillor Bachman and our Director of Public Works, Mike Kearns, and myself attended a delegation with PA Sandhu from the Ministry of Infrastructure to discuss the wear and tear of salt trucks on our town streets. And about 200,000 tons of salt travel our streets, and that salt is distributed to northeastern Ontario. That's a lot of tonnage. It's a lot of wear and tear, and we certainly could appreciate any support that the provincial government might be able to give to improving the quality of our roads so that they can handle future tonnage. I also had the opportunity to have a couple of conversations with representatives from Canadian National Railway about the Isabella Street crossing. It was great to have CN people at the conference so we could have a conversation. And I certainly wish that Canadian Pacific would take the initiative and be at conferences like that as well. But I had the opportunity to speak to the head engineer for Canada, which was really important to hopefully give it a nudge or whatever for them to come to the table. Overall, they had about 862 people pre-register for the conference. They had 1,500 badges printed and 1,500 badges were sold. Overall, I found that people seemed to be happy to be out, able to network, which was really important. To visit the vendors. I mean, some of these vendors they haven't been able to talk to in a couple of years, so they thought that was really important. And yeah, it was great to see people and to have those conversations. And just so that people are aware, AMO paid for my attendance and stay at the conference, so there was no financial burden on the town of Parry Sound. And that's my report. Thank you. So now on with the agenda. So moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Horn that Council approve the 2022 first quarter progress report on the town's key performance objectives, otherwise known as KPOs, as set out in attachment number 1. Mr. Harris, do you want to start with any comments?
Sure, Mr. Mayor. This is a report that we started a couple of years ago. As you indicated, it's for the first quarter of 2022. So we track key strategic initiatives that Council approved as part of the strategic planning process. Some of them are completed, and that's indicated in the attachment 1, and there are some that are ongoing. In addition to tracking the strategic initiatives, we also report to Council on measurement performance indicators, number of building permits, value of building permits issued, and so on. And for the first quarter, and because it's the winter time, the numbers that you see here aren't significant yet. Typically, that activity picks up in the spring and throughout the summer. The last couple of years, we've been averaging in terms of construction value anywhere from $16 to $21 million in construction value. Currently, we're just over $1 million. Dave Thompson's going to make some comments. I think just to give Council a sense of what's, I'll call it, in the hopper, in the works, the types of development that we're getting inquiries on, and the magnitude of that development. I've asked him to make a few comments just to put into context what is happening in the town, the level of inquiries we're getting for mostly residential development, but not just residential, and something that the numbers don't show. They probably won't show it until the second or third quarter report, but I thought as we head into the summer, Council may want to hear that. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Thompson at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Through your worship, Clayton's, fairly accurate when he talks about spring being the big time for building permits and everything to come through. However, what the statistics do show you is that if you're taking a look at the planning applications, they are a little bit higher considering that it's only the first quarter. And the planning applications are a precursor to building permits coming in. So that's one thing that, Council needs to know. The building permits aren't being issued currently. The planning applications always come first, especially for the large scale developments. And in the past 3 months, going right back till the end of last year, we have been very active in inquiries and processing of permits and working our way through applications, specifically site plans for larger developments. So that has eaten up a lot of time for Mr. Kearns and myself, as well as our planning consultants that we're using currently without a planner on board to work our way through those processes. And I'm pretty sure that within the next month, you will start to see some of those planning applications coming forward. And again, it is mostly for residential development, and again, multi-unit residential development. Some of them are extremely exciting. They may take a little bit longer to work their way right through to the council table. And of course, there will be inquiries that we're dealing with right now that maybe do not come to fruition. However, even those are excellent exercises in helping us to determine where we can, where are good areas for development within the community, and where are going to be a little bit of struggle with working with our infrastructure. So overall, it's extremely active, especially on the planning side. That will translate into building permits as the year moves on. And the building department, of course, is they have two areas where they get busy. One is before they issue the building permits, and then the other is when they're doing all the work that's associated with issued building permits. And right now, in talking with Mr. Vandermeer, he and Nick are extremely busy in getting permits, inspections done, and especially final inspections, and some of the lagging applications that we're now getting closed off and getting people moved into. And I mean, within the next month or so, we should have about almost 150 residential units coming online that will be ready for people to move into throughout the community. So that's the stage we're at right now, and it will get busier this summer, we're sure.
Good, thank you. Okay, so I'll open it up to council members. Any questions for staff on this, on the KPO? Oh, Councillor Bachman. We can't hear you, Councillor Bachman.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you. My first question is for Mr. Cairns.
Sorry about that.
My question is regarding the master recreation plan, and I noticed that there is no recent update since the last time I brought that question to council, and I just wanted to know if what your thoughts are on how we may be able to move that forward. And just on a side note, I'm wondering if maybe a committee is something we may consider to move that forward, since we are building a recreation center and we'll be making a large investment.
Through your worship. So some good news on that front. The RFP closed for the recreation master plan just recently, and there were a number of submissions received, and staff will be working through that process. It's already started, actually, I believe. So the process of working through the submissions is underway. So there should be some news coming back to council very shortly.
And just as a follow-up to that RFP, was that done through the new bids online system?
Through your worship, yes, absolutely. All of our bids are going out in the same manner. So.
Wonderful. That is great news. Thank you very much for the update. I really appreciate it.
Any further questions? Councillor Keith?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I have two questions. One is for Mr. Cairns, and it's just in reference to the winter maintenance strategy. At the end of the last comment, December 21st, indicates that, of course, the town is using more sand and less, I would assume, of that of chlorides, road salt. So I'm wondering, is there going to be an analysis? Because that's the impression I have, but when is the deadline date or approximate date that that should be completed?
Through your worship, yes, absolutely, that's correct. So we do intend on bringing back an analysis to council. What we would like to do is get through our spring sweeping season so that we have some quantifiable measurements of the amount of material that we picked up during our spring sweep post winter maintenance, and then we will be bringing forward that information, and it should be this summer.
Thank you. And I have one other question. And I know it was touched on a few minutes ago, but I'm making a request, and that is to Mr. Thompson. And that has to do with, because I realize, Mr. Thompson, you're also looking after the building matters. And I'm just wondering in the future if it could be considered for the chart that is presented to us, where we show 2022 infrastructure and development statistics. For the first quarter of 2022, we just see one column. I just personally find it would be really helpful to get a little bit more of a feel if one could have a comparison of first quarter in 2021. Or something so that one can see that if the first quarter really, for what was mentioned a moment ago, basically there's less, say, planning applications. If we can have a comparison to the previous year, I think you get a better feel of things. Is that something that could possibly be put in the next KPOs when this is presented to council, or at least considered?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sure that's possible to do. I would think that Mr. Harris would want to determine exactly how he'd like that to be presented in these reports, and we can consider that. I see Mr. Harris is actually online here. Maybe he would like to speak to it.
Through the mayor, Councillor Keith. Yeah, we can look at providing what information council finds useful. It's it's not a problem. We thought that the year comparison would probably be fine, but if by quarter, it's the biggest issue is amount of information on a page, and that the information is still legible. Because if we are adding the first quarter, the second quarter, the third, and the fourth quarter in a total, but we'll see what information, how we can manage it on the page and still make it legible for members of council.
Okay. Any further questions, comments on the KPOs? Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in regards to the same page with the statistics, based on the new residential unit permits, is there a way to further elaborate on how many are basement dwellings, how many are garage rooftop residents, based on the new bylaws that we've created? Is that something that we have the ability to further define?
You, Mr. Mayor. Again, anything is possible. We have all this statistics, we have all this information. Presenting it in a impactful manner would be the issue. It's something we can most definitely look at and work on and try to identify a good way of doing that. Sometimes with some of the numbers, when they're too low, if we start breaking them out, they really won't mean anything because it is a snapshot in time. But we most definitely can take a look at it if we can determine that there's going to be a method of presentation that would be useful for council to have. We can prepare something of that nature.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any. Anyone opposed then to passing this resolution? Nope, that's carried. By Councillor Burden, second by Councillor Borneman, that Seguin be advised that prior to town council considering any other comments regarding Seguin's MZO application, the following must be provided. A West Parry Sound demand forecast for housing, retail, and commercial development. B, an economic impact study on the town and the other West Parry Sound municipalities. C, a feasibility study to determine the economics and financial viability of the initiative. And D, a financial framework for all aspects of shared services from the town that would be required to support development on rezoned lands, and that the terms of the reference for each study should be developed in consultation with the town and the studies be funded by Seguin. Questions, comments? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So please indulge me here. I've really given this a lot of thought and struggled with a number of moving parts in this issue. And I want to make it clear that I don't want to underestimate the risk for the numerous moving parts and certainly the unending consideration that's required. I do not support this as written, but rather I would prefer to defer this and come back with an amended resolution that speaks to the following. As I've stated here in the past, I believe it can be in our best interest to work with other municipalities and building partnerships. If amalgamation is in the distant future, I would prefer at this time to keep the doors of communication open wherever possible, but certainly not in a way to go through blindly. I'd like to see a committee struck to sit down with Seguin and explore fully and concretely every aspect of working together so that there are no unpleasant surprises on either side of the boundary. We were expected to provide Seguin with their own plans of what we would do with the land during boundary discussions. We couldn't do that without a crystal ball. And although this may not be a fair comparison, we're now expecting Seguin to come forth with full details. And I think this provides the best argument for striking such a committee that I described and moving forward. And the committee is not my idea, by the way. I simply mentioned that here. I think that it would be prudent for us to consider the growth and mutual benefit of our area municipalities to seek out opportunities to partner, work together. I don't want to be so quick as to dismiss what I think is opportunist here. I'm told that the town cannot make money directly on water and sewage, but if the cost of building this infrastructure is shared, that puts us in a better position to provide services to new development within our own boundaries. A penny saved is a penny earned. So finally, we can all come together and discuss a vision and logistics of making something work. Tight contractual agreements and MOUs can protect both sides, and I would hope survive a change in political personnel in the years to come. We are elected to look after the best interests of our taxpayers, but I also believe we're elected to have a vision, and that's something that I've ran my last 2 terms on, is looking forward to the future with a vision. And I think that that is something that would provide some much needed future growth for our future generations to benefit from. So in conclusion, I would really like to see a committee come together that we can go back to Seguin and get everything out and find out just what it is and what we would do moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions, comments? Councillor Backman?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is for Mr. Harris or any of the spokespersons on this matter. I guess one of the questions is, would it be beneficial to the town if we had partners to repair, replace, and expand the town's infrastructure to build capacity and accommodate growth and ensure the integrity of the town's servicing infrastructure and capacity for existing and future development?
Through the mayor, that's not a question that can really easily be answered in a short time frame. This as in the context of the MZO, what I understand Seguin's proposal is if there's growth related costs required to service Seguin's growth that would be in the MZO lands, those growth-related costs would be included in Seguin's development charge bylaw and collected. I don't know of any cost sharing that they talked about. I mean, they've committed, at least for growth-related costs that are funded through DCs, to cover that cost. So their costs that are required, are the costs that are being incurred to service the MZO lands, they're going to cover them. That's not cost sharing per se. If the costs aren't incurred, there's no cost sharing.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Barnman?
Well, this is a complex and complicated issue. It is a cross-boundary issue. If we were in one unified municipality, this would almost be a no-brainer. We're not. So we're left to do our due diligence and make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's. The only way to get to that is to sit and hear potential partners. And I said earlier today, I don't think that this should be restricted necessarily to exclusively to Seguin. I think that, there are large proposals on the table in McDougall as well. I think that we almost have to sit as a triumvirate to figure out what our needs are and how we best go through this together. How we go about this, the studies that are asked in tonight's resolution aren't particularly new or different. I recall, for instance, when Walmart came to Parry Sound, there were economic studies with respect to how it might impact the downtown. There have been different studies done with respect to providing infrastructure, for instance, the water into McDougall. So these studies aren't uncommon. And I don't know that a committee has much to discuss without some meat on the bone, other than what's already been put out there. We can go round and round that, but until we actually have some facts and some figures, I don't think we make substantial progress. I would say, or inquire, at least ask, so if we send this to Seguin and I'm just not sure how, Mr. Harris, I'm not sure how much confidence, if Seguin undertakes a study with respect to the economic impacts in the town of Parry Sound, and it comes back and says, no, there won't be any. I'm not sure that we would necessarily accept that out of hand. So I think that we may want to consider doing at least that one internally. I think Mr. Diamond in his presentation last fall, and the fellow from Watson, Andrew, I can't recall his last name, but between the two of them, they had at least some initial thoughts on that. And I think that it might be wise to follow up independently. So we have something that we're not going to go back in a number of months and say, well, we want to do a peer review or some such thing with respect to this information. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. Thanks. Councillor Keith.
Well, thank you. I want to first of all thank staff, the senior leadership team. There's been a lot of work in preparing. I appreciate the report that is here tonight before us. And yes, this is a complicated issue. It's not an easy one. That's why we got elected, I guess, to be on council. But I think the plan that is here that it would be prudent on our part in doing due diligence to send a letter with these recommendations. Hopefully it's passed tonight, and then see what is the response of Seguin Township to this. We need to allow them the opportunity to present to us what they are prepared to do, and go from there. There's no point putting the cart before the horse and assuming that, well, they may feel this way or that way. Let's find out. The bottom line is the proof is in the pudding, and we right here, I think we have some solid questions to be asked. And we also have to remember that the taxpayer of this community is going to be the one, if there's any, in the event things do not go the way it is felt they should, according to this resolution, the taxpayers will be the ones down the road that will be paying for any sort of funding. So I would like to see in good faith what the township of Seguin is willing to and prepared to do. So this is our opportunity, and I say we go forth with all that's recommended here. Thank you.
Councillor McCann.
Thank you. I'm going to, I haven't been in this chair as long as some of my colleagues have, but after 8 years, let me dare to be a little bold. Seguin needs us. We need Seguin. We're all talking someday about being under the same umbrella if we're going to grow together. Maybe Parry Sound and Seguin should just amalgamate and become one. And then that would make this discussion a lot easier. I suggest that. Anybody want to second it?
That's a conversation for another time, but I wouldn't disagree with you.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I really, I don't want this to die tonight, because I think Seguin has other options that we may not be aware of. They're going to do something, whether we work with them or not. And I just don't want to be on the losing end here. And I think if we sat down and we figured this all out together and put it in a very strong contractual writing and memorandum of understandings, that we would all have our best interests protected. But that would be in a perfect world, I suppose. But that's my grandiose suggestion for tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Keith, can I get you to take the chair for a moment, please? Okay. So we have been asked by Seguin, okay, what is it that we would require, whatever, to do that? That's laid out in our R&R and in this resolution to move forward. So that's the framework that we need to do on. What Councillor Borneman said about the meat on the bone or whatever, these studies are going to give us that meat on the bone to find out what can be done. And to not do them would be a mistake. But this is something that has been put forward by Seguin Township. Okay. So the way this resolution is read or done or whatever is appropriate for our ratepayers. And I'll remind everyone sitting at this table, we were elected by the ratepayers of the town of Parry Sound to look after their interest and to make sure that their interest is upheld. If this was an amalgamation, as Councillor Borneman said, or someone said, it'd be a no-brainer. Absolutely a no-brainer. But moving forward, we need to make sure that we are representing our ratepayers. And I've heard from our ratepayers. I've heard from Seguin ratepayers too. So I think what's laid out here is a framework that could work into an MOU that could possibly move forward. But I think we need to make sure that we're protecting our ratepayers' interests moving forward. And I will be asking for a recorded vote. Okay, so Ms. Johnson, you can be prepared for that. Because we, as I said, we need to be representing our ratepayers. I'll take the chair back.
Thank you.
Councillor McCann.
Somebody made a comment before, and I just want to make sure that it's clearly understood that shared cost in terms of building the infrastructure, such as a water treatment plant. Again, it's that initial investment that at somewhere down the line, Parry Sound taxpayers are going to have to come up with, because I understand we are at a capacity with our water treatment plant. So I just want to make it clear that when we're talking about cost sharing, we're talking about some capital costs up front to sort of get the ball rolling.
You know, studies are going to determine a lot. And I think that's where we have to start. Councillor Borneman, you look like you got to say something.
Well, I don't want to offend anyone, but Councillor McCann, the cost that might be incurred for building the requirements of the town of Parry Sound and the cost that would be incurred in building what is required by the town and what is required by this MZO are two dramatically different numbers. So it's not cost sharing, it's adding on in that respect, which is, again, I think we're headed in the right direction here, whether we form a committee tonight or when these studies are received, should they be received, and discuss it then. Either way, that's, you know, without these studies, we just repeat ourselves from here on in.
Yep, exactly. Councillor Bachman have their hand up.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, one of the, I totally appreciate all the work that staff and everybody has done with respect to this. I do not, I like the idea of area municipals coming together to grow and solve regional issues. I recognize the issues and threats that are presented and reported in the report, but I also like the idea of developing a business case together for the need of timing of cost of water and wastewater infrastructure through an integrated report process. But I guess one of the hard things I'm struggling with is just the initial, that we would, prior to any further consideration, the following must be provided. And I just feel like it becomes somewhat of an ultimatum, and that's not really the approach I think is good in trying to build probably the biggest partnership, largest partnership outside of the West Parry Sound Pool project. And I understand that this information is required, and I'm certain that we're not certain, but I would expect that both Seguin and McDougall, as they grow their communities, they have possibly much of this also included in the strategic plans. And I'd like to look at common denominators within those plans that move us in the direction. And that's why I really like the idea of a committee that enables us to work together in developing and determining what the best needs are, and outside of us really presenting what, in my opinion, looks more like an ultimatum, because I don't think that unless this stuff is provided to us, we should not be in communication with the township of Seguin. And I guess my question is, based on what we're presenting here, and though I'm not familiar with the expectation that McDougall has for the growth of their community, but it is critical that they be part of the conversation. And so I'm not sure if it's also, we're asking this of, Seguin because it's a process of an MZO, but they are working on their OP, and whether the government comes in and approves the MZO tomorrow, or eventually they follow due process and get it, I think that, it is beneficial for us to have all three municipalities come together to have further discussions with this and determine what each municipality feels are the appropriate studies. I know we've given our feedback, but we potentially are going to have, two other partners through the expansion of our services. And so that's what I'm really struggling with at this moment.
Councillor Horn.
Sorry about that. We do not have enough information to make an informed decision to represent the taxpayers of the town of Parry Sound without the asks that are here in this resolution. Simple as that. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor McCann, and then actually you're allowed 2 kicks at the cat. This is your 3rd, so I'm.
The poor cat. Well,
Poor
this
cat.
is on a positive note. I will say this, that the studies may help us to determine where the costs are coming from, what Seguin's costs would be to build the size of a water treatment plant that's going to service their needs and what would service our needs. So I think that that's worthwhile seeking, not only for water, but probably for any number of service sharing opportunities. I'm just afraid that Sequin's going to go back and say, well, we'll figure out how to do this on our own. And I get what everyone's saying. I'm supportive, but not to the, I won't be voting yes for this because I just don't like the wording here. But I'd like to see us all work together in the future. It's just not quite worded the way I wanted to see it.
Well, anyway, I think it's very clear in its wording as to what we require and what was asked of us, what we do require. So I think moving forward, this is it.
And that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's there. So and it's very clear. If there's nothing else, I'm going to have Ms. Johnson call the vote.
So I will ask each name and please state yes or no, voting in favor or in opposition to the resolution as it was read. Councillor Backman?
Is that me?
Councillor Backman, yes?
Yes.
Yes?
No.
Oh, no. Councillor Borneman?
Yes.
Councillor Burden?
Yes.
Councillor Horn?
Yes.
Councillor Keith?
Yes.
Councillor McCann?
No.
Mayor McGarvey?
Yes.
So it is 5 in favor, 2 opposed, and the resolution carries.
Thank you. Okay, item 941. Okay, item 941 moved by Councillor Horn, second by Councillor Keith. The council provisionally approves consent application B22-03 Oldham Winifred, subject to the conditions of the approval of the following as follows. 1, that the right-of-way be extended to cover the originally approved lots 46 to 49 and be a minimum of 6 meters wide. 2, that the right-of-way also be given to the town of Parry Sound for the purposes of maintenance and repair of the underground stormwater system. 3, that a right-of-way acknowledge that in the event that the town must service or maintain the stormwater system within the right-of-way, direct access to the residential units serviced by the right-of-way may be blocked for a period of time, and that the owners of the right-of-way indemnify the town for any claims that might arise from the town undertaking public works within the right-of-way. 4, that as-built drawing of the underground services be provided to the town and the final location of the right-of-way, including the underground services, be shown by survey to the satisfaction of the town. Discussion. Councilor McCann.
Thank you. Well, Chief Thompson, you explained it very well to me, so maybe you can do the same for the public, because this is kind of rather complicated, but in the end, it's simple.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm actually going to ask our planning consultant, Jim Diamond, who is online with us, to answer any questions. This is a complex application, and I think Jim may be better versed in the intricacies of it for all involved.
Okay, thanks.
There we go. Well, thank you. If I can, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor McCann. Dave Thompson spoke well. It's simple, but it's complicated. The right-of-way will provide access to the rear units. So the development that they're doing has got units that face the street, and they also have units on the walkout in the basement. So they're providing a great affordable form of housing here. The right-of-way is to provide access for those bottom units to have a parking spot and access their units. At the same time, the municipality is going to own a stormwater pipe in the middle of it. And if you have to get in there and fix that stormwater pipe, you don't want the owners of those units complaining to the town, or worse, suing the town because they can't get access to their property. And so you need an agreement registered on title acknowledging the fact that in the event that that stormwater pipe fails somehow, the town's going to be in there for a while and people are going to have to park somewhere else and walk to their units. We need the as-built plan so we can figure out how people can park and drive on that while still preserving the integrity of the stormwater pipe that you will eventually own underneath of it. So the conditions are there to protect the town and to advise the people that will use it for access that from time to time they might not be able to get in there.
And so how would they get around to the back then? Would they traverse over the property then to get to the town's infrastructure?
Well, the town would have the right to get its equipment in there. People would have to walk. They'd have to park on the street and walk around to the back of their units.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, comments? Councillor Bordeman?
Mr. Diamond, I just want to be clear in my own pea brain that under normal circumstances, the residents in these back units are going to be able to drive around behind and park there?
Yes.
Is there a huge material change here from the original proposal, or is this effectively what you're suggesting? Is this effectively putting all of the same issues to bed?
The proposal, as the application that was submitted, the only thing that has changed about it is our condition says we want the right of way across all the properties, and because that's also going to be a fire route. But other than that, all we're doing is protecting the town's interests with the conditions.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I can advise, I've discussed it with the applicants and they understand what we're recommending.
Okay, good. Councillor McCann?
Yeah, so there's no laneway back there though, is there? Like, does each property have its own driveway that you can go around the back? Because I understand there's 3 units there.
Yeah. I would describe it as a laneway. It's really a private road, not owned by the municipality, not maintained by the municipality.
Just one for all 3 lots.
That will connect all 3 lots.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
And also it'll be a fire route.
Right.
Probably something like you see in some cities where they have a laneway behind some of the places, and yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I understand those laneways were for the honey wagons to pick up the debris. There are actually some in Sudbury that were originally developed for that.
Yeah.
My grandmother, yeah, place, yeah.
Councillor Keith.
Thank you. So I just wanted clarification, and it had to do with the comment about parking. Does that mean that each unit would be permitted one parking spot, and that would be at the back of the building, provided, everything is okay with the right of way.
That's correct. Each unit has to meet the bylaw requirements for parking.
Thank you.
Okay, anything further on this particular item? Nope. Okay, anyone opposed to passing this resolution? No, that's carried then. Thank you. This is item 942, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Bachman. The staff bring forward for council's consideration a refund building permit fee, a bylaw for council's consideration to refund building permit fees for accessory dwelling units for a 6-month period of time. Discussion. Councillor McCann.
Yes, thank you again. So when we talked about this idea earlier, this had something to do with expediting, I guess, the paperwork or the way for Ukrainian immigrants. Am I correct, or is this for something entirely different?
Well, we can't. I'll let Chief Thompson answer, but we can't say that it's specifically for that. But the hope would be that people might take advantage of this little bit of an extra or whatever to do what they're going to do that they might have been considering for a while. Okay. So, Chief Thompson.
Yeah.
For you, Mr. Mayor, to your point, I think the overall concept was not necessarily for any particular group, but to help develop the housing stock, a housing stock that might be limited in town as it is in terms of a lower cost rental type housing stock for all residents who may be looking for housing within the town of Parry Sound. Yes, could it be suitable for the Ukrainian situation? It possibly could be. This is probably the quickest way to develop housing stock possible. And publicizing our ability to have these additional units in houses is something that the building department and myself have discussed numerous times, in that there hasn't been as much uptake as is anywhere near possible for uptake to occur. So this is a way of publicizing, encouraging people. You'll see that we're also suggesting an education campaign, as well as exploring partnerships with DSAB, because there are opportunities for funding of renovations through DSAB programs. So there's a number of initiatives here far beyond the refunding of building permit fees to try to increase that housing stock within the town.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anything further? Anyone? Not seeing any. So anyone opposed to passing this direction? Nope. No one's opposed. That's carried. Thank you. This is a item 951, note to save the date. And whereas community, moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Burton, whereas Community Living Parry Sound has worked to bring people and their communities together for the last 60 years. Whereas Community Living Parry Sound supports individuals as they develop their capacity to live, learn, work, and participate in all aspects of living in the community. And whereas Community Living Parry Sound helps the community develop its capacity to welcome and support people who have not always had the same opportunities as the rest of us to participate in their community in meaningful, productive ways. And whereas the Council of the Town of Parry Sound wishes to urge its citizens to celebrate the inclusion in our community of people who have developmental disability, therefore be resolved, the Mayor and Council declare the month of May 2022 Community Living Month. Discussion? Anyone opposed to this? Oh, Councillor McCann, you got something?
Yeah, just a comment, actually. This is an excellent thing to bring up, and I certainly fully support it. It's a no-brainer. You know, I would continue to encourage and support our local employers to take on folks that participate. I think it's called the LINK program through Community Living. There's, you know, people used to be institutionalized years before. Now they get to be out and socialize and have productive lives and have a reason to get up in the morning. We've all been into places, whether it's a drugstore or a grocery store, where people have been employed, and they do a good job, and they're friendly people, you know. So I really, really thank and encourage the community to continue with this, and congratulate the Community Living on such a great program.
Thank you. So this here is, I know it's backwards on that there, but anyway, it's save the date, September 29th, 2022, Community Living Parry Sound celebrates 60 years in Parry Sound. So I think that's absolutely fantastic. And, you know, Councillor Horn could have sat through this or whatever just to hear the good stuff. So anyway.
Mr. Mayor, did you say September?
It's save the date, September 29th, 2022. It says it's their anniversary, their 60th
Okay.
anniversary. May is Community Living Month. That's
Right.
what we're voting on right now. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew about September 29th.
Good.
Okay. Anything further? Anyone opposed to passing this resolution? Nope. Okay, that's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Horn, that whereas notice was given in the March 15th, 2022 council meeting through resolution and direction to staff to amend the procedural bylaw to include individual discretionary electronic participation in meetings, and whereas other amendments to the procedural bylaw proposed for adoption are a housekeeping nature, now therefore the notice period per provision of notice policy be waived for purposes adoption of a draft bylaw 2022-7238 being the council procedural bylaw. Discussion. Oh, Councillor Borneman, okay. Hand was kind of off to the side a bit, so I couldn't quite see it.
Sorry, I'm just wondering if someone would like to explain to the public what we're up to here.
Mayor McGarvey, would you like me to address?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so what Mayor McGarvey, what you have just read is a resolution that would waive notice for the procedural bylaw that's been drafted and which would come next to be passed. Notice provisions require that any change to the procedural bylaw has a 21-day notice in the newspaper, etc. The change that is being proposed for the procedural bylaw was discussed by council and approved by council at its May 15th meeting. And there are some other changes that are of a purely housekeeping nature, which were described in the report. So for that reason, the resolution to waive the procedural or the notice periods is suggested. If Councillor Borneman wishes to hear more about the actual procedural bylaw and the changes that are being proposed in that, I can address that when that comes up. And Mayor McGarvey, I would just note that there were two items that were missed, and so we will want to go back to those two items. They were the community interagency meetings and the status of municipal office as open to the public.
Oh, okay.
So
okay, we'll go back to those then right after. Okay, yeah. Okay, too many things to look at here. Anyway, okay, we'll go back to those right after this. So anything further on this resolution in front of us? No? Anyone opposed to passing it? Not seeing anyone opposed, so that's carried. All right, so we will jump to 952. Okay, so we're going back. Council appointment to attend community interagency meetings. Okay. Ms. Johnson, do you have anything you want to add to this, or?
Your Worship, this is an item of correspondence that came to the last council meeting. There was a request, I believe it was posed by Councillor Bachman, and council agreed to have it come to this next meeting for consideration. There is a request for council appointment to attend these community interagency meetings. They are held the third Wednesday of each month from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. in a location in the town of Parry Sound, I believe at the library.
Okay, all right. Well, Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I would like to participate if nobody else is interested.
Okay, all right. Is there anyone else? Not seeing anybody jumping up and down, so I need mover and seconder to, okay, moved by Councillor McCann, second by Councillor Borneman, that Councillor Bachman is authorized to attend the community interagency meeting. Any discussion?
Thank you.
Anyone opposed to that? Nope, that's carried then. Okay, that's that one. Next is 953, status of the municipal office as open to the public. Councillor McCann.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we've all been stopped in the street and asked about the status of the town office and why it was still closed. And, you know, with everybody opening up and with the relaxation of the restrictions and such, and as we begin to move ahead, especially with the summer season, I would like to advocate that we move forward and direct staff to begin with open hours again for regular business hours with our town office, and we can begin to put in action the work that we did in the lobby and show it off a bit and put it to good use. So I suspect we need a seconder for that.
Well, I think there needs to be some, and I think staff maybe have a clarification, because I know the public has been coming in. So Mr. Harris and maybe Ms. Phillips.
Yeah, through the mayor to Councillor McCann. The offices are open to the public during hours 8:30 to 4:30. What is in place, I'll call it controlled access, so that we have a small lobby. In addition to taxpayers serving whatever needs they may require from the town, we also provide POA services. So the controlled access through a buzzer is a way to make sure there's not too many people in the lobby and that we can maintain social distancing. But everybody that needs to come in the office, 8:30 to 4:30, can come into the office. That's not been an issue. I've spoken with staff, and I think Ms. Phillips has some more comments. It seems to be working. Staff did advise members of council a couple of weeks ago that we were reviewing our corporate policy that sets out all the protocols, whether that's hand sanitization, wearing masks and everything, that we were, with the new HR person, we were going to be bringing a report back to council for the May 3rd council meeting to just see how we what protocols we want in place for this new world. And we certainly agree that things are loosening up in businesses across the town. There's still some government agencies such as the OPP that I think have difficult to get in, and perhaps there's others. But I think Ms. Phillips, she's had some conversations with her staff. The other thing that when I spoke with the receptionist, we often get inquiries from people that are out of town that come to the town office that they have an inquiry. How do I get to the OPP station? Where's the hospital? Where's the Service Ontario? And things that they don't need to come in the office for. And so they just, through the buzzer, they give them the answer and the person's on their way. When residents need to come in for service, that's not an issue. It's just managing the numbers of people in the lobby. That's really the only thing. I think Ms. Phillips might want to add some comments.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, it's exactly that, Mr. Harris. So we've used the buzzer to effectively manage the flow of traffic through the lobby. And then that has helped to create like a sense of comfort as we've managed through like the recent tax due date and then when people come in to make payments and everything, the lobby doesn't get congested. So in that way, I think the restricted access has helped us to manage that. We also have members of the public coming in for POA or for the front counter. So we get an idea of what help they're looking for at the door sometimes. So that helps as well, us to serve them efficiently. So that's
Okay,
been
well, thank
working well.
you. Thank you for the update. That certainly helps a bit, and it's good to know that the system seems to be working for now. I know it would be unfair to ask how much longer we would need to do this. You're right, there are other agencies that still lock their doors. I guess one final question is it very, very clear at the door when you pull up to it, you know, there's this instinct to pull on the door is locked or they're closed. Is there a very big sign with big letters that say we're open, buzz, or something to that effect?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. There is a sign pointing at the buzzer and directing the public to press the buzzer for help. So I do believe that is there and present. Yeah.
Okay.
And for the most part, people are seeing the sign.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, thanks for the update.
Councillor Keith?
Yes, I'm just going to make a comment. I know not as a counselor, but as just as a taxpayer, I've attended the town office and gone to the proper door and rang the bell and waited for my turn to get in. I had no issue with that, but I think that there is a new reality that regardless of down the road, what the services may be that the town is providing or other businesses, I think times have changed, and it may well be there's going to be more places that you don't easily walk in the way you used to. Having traveled extensively, I can assure you that over the years, there are many places in other countries where you never were able to just freely walk in the way we do here. So I think that we may also have to accept the reality. This is our reality in that there's changes and some things may not go back quite to where they were before. So I think we have to keep that in mind. And I think the health and safety and welfare of all of us is no doubt a real priority to all of us too. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question regarding the buzzer control. Does the reception have the ability to unlock the door from their desk, or do they need to physically go and open the door? Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the door can be unlocked right from the desk. So as soon as they press the buzzer, they can see who's there. They can help them or welcome them into the office. And they do not have to stand to greet the people. So it's also is helping to maintain safety of our staff as they can serve the public from behind the counter barrier where we are, and they don't have to, and it helps with physical distancing, as many of our ratepayers are elderly or that demographic is often people who need to pay in person. So I do think that the buzzer is helping to keep town residents safe if they want to come in and feel comfortable that that they have adequate space while they're being served. Just as a follow-up, I think that obviously the renovation that we've done was very timely and has definitely provided a very strong barrier between the public. And I just wanted to know that, do we allow more than one person in the office at the time? Do we allow 6 feet for multiple people, or is it just individually, one at a time?
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, we can serve more than one person at a time if they are coming in for POA versus, the front counter. We'll try to direct traffic to what service they're looking for as best as we can, so that they don't have to wait outside. Typically, it's 2, sort of that range at a time. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Harris.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, in addition to the lock for the front door being automated by the front receptionist, it's also, there's an intercom, so that it's not just the lock, there's an intercom system so the receptionist can speak to the person outside. And again, if it's a directional thing that it's not really town services are looking at, the receptionist advises that she's just able to give the person the information they need, and they're on their way quickly. So there's an intercom and the automated door opener.
Okay. Councillor Barneman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and I want to say that Miss Greer is very good. She's taken care of me more than once at the front door when I've either lost or forgotten my fob. Mr. Harris, I'm wondering when we anticipate moving back to regular in-person meetings for council, and whether or not in future folks who may be uncomfortable with that setting will be allowed to participate, continue to participate electronically. I'm thinking of members of the public more so than us.
Through the mayor, Councilor Borneman, I'll let Ms. Johnson speak to that. It's part of the procedural bylaw amendments that she spoke to earlier this evening. We think there may be some, not procedural challenges from a procedural point of view, but technical challenges in having some people in the meeting in person, other people by Zoom, and members of council in person. So that might present some technical challenges, but other than that, I'll let Ms. Johnson speak to the plans for public meetings.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to finish this one for the office being open. So Councillor McCann, you're okay with the conversation that we just had?
Yes, I am. Thanks very much for the update.
Very good. Okay. And now we'll go to the procedural bylaw, which I'll begin to read that one, and then we can ask questions with regard to that. So moved by Councillor Horn and second by Councillor Keith, that bylaw number 2022-7238 being a bylaw to govern and regulate proceedings of council of the Corporation of Town of Parry Sound and its boards and committees, where applicable, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. Are all members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Keith and second by Councillor Horn, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. So now discussion. And I think Ms. Johnson, you've already been set up for this question.
Right. Thank you, Your Worship. So the procedural bylaw is before you tonight with some amendments as a result of discussion and approval by council at the March 15th council meeting. For the last couple of years, almost, I think 2 years exactly, we've been having virtual council meetings, and committee meetings likely have all been virtual as well. At the March 15th meeting, council approved that we go back to our in-person meetings, but that there be option for the mayor in consultation with the CAO or clerk to hold virtual meetings as may be necessary from time to time. So I don't know what those circumstances particularly would be, but on occasion, a special meeting is called. There may be an emergency and it may be easier to get a virtual meeting set up. It also permits committees to hold meetings virtually going forward, because we didn't make this permission. Our sort of default procedural bylaw has been that they must be in-person meetings. So with the legislation opening that up, then we can now have a virtual or in-person meetings. The choice of council seems to be to default to in-person meetings, but there's that option of going virtually, and committees have an option of continuing to go virtually. In addition, though, what council wanted to ensure is in place in the procedural bylaw is that individual members at their discretion can also participate virtually. And that is a part where theoretically, I understand and appreciate the reason for that. And we're optimistic that technically it will work well or reasonably well in the council chambers. We tested equipment yesterday, and it appears that the camera that we're using, it's a new technology called the OWL, with a 360 camera, will be able to stream that. It will be a little different than what we used pre-pandemic in terms of the visuals. It certainly won't be the same as the Zoom meeting where we're each sort of a little tile, but that should work. And we can zoom in persons, whether they're deponents, members of the public who wish to speak in a public meeting, or a consultant, etc., into the meeting so that they wouldn't be coming in person. My recollection and what was noted at the March 15th meeting was that the discretion really was at the committee level for committee members to be able to determine whether or not they come to meetings in person or virtually. But I did write into the procedural bylaw that same discretion for council member, assuming that that may be also what was wanted. So I will be sending out information, sort of like an instructional piece, to members of council prior to the May 3rd council meeting, when we'll be having our first in-person meeting, and maybe try a bit of testing with council as well. For committee meetings, the committees which might have met somewhere other than council chambers pre-pandemic, and which may continue to be meeting in some other location, my only concern with the possibility of the hybrid meeting, both in person and virtual, is the technical issue, whether there will be the capacity in the location where they may be meeting to be able to do that. Our council chambers, as I said, we tested that. The equipment is there. I think if committees meet in the council chambers, there may be some training required of whoever would be handling that meeting, the technical part of it, and I think it's doable. It's just, I just would caution that there may be a little bit of conflict there in trying to ensure that we're going to be able to meet the requirements of the procedural bylaw, in that any member of the committee may be at their discretion zooming in or meeting virtually to a in-person meeting. So I'm suggesting that council is able to go forward with this procedural bylaw as it was written, as was requested that it be written at the March 15th meeting. There may be reasons why, or I guess I'd say, I think we'll be monitoring this and collecting feedback. You may have feedback yourselves after participating in the May 3rd meeting. And we may feel it appropriate to bring that information back to council and relook at this if necessary. So those are some comments I would make. If there's any questions, I'm happy to try to answer those as well.
Well, I think one of them, Mr. Harris was also at the meeting at the BOCC where they zoomed people in and tried to, there was a lot of feedback. And that's one of the things, and I'm going to say before even COVID, people were doing hybrid meetings, and you can end up with feedback. And that's where we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So whatever technology we end up using, it's got to make sure that it's going to be good for those that are here, those that are online, and those that are watching. So I just want to make sure that happens. That's all. Councillor Bachman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Johnson, just to clarify, under the hybrid model, some councillors would be able to participate in council chambers and some remote. Is that correct? And at what discretion?
Through you, Your Worship, that is how it has been written into the procedural bylaw.
And what would be the discretion, if you can elaborate, that one would be able to participate remote versus in council chambers?
I'm not sure if I'm going to address this quite. I'll try to address your question. The discretion is simply at the member of council's own personal discretion. If
great.
Okay, so I would say technically, the more, I mean, if everybody was meeting virtually, there were no members of council in person in the council chambers, we might as well have a Zoom meeting. The more that are meeting virtually to an in-person meeting, it has a potential for more technical problems. Our test was yesterday did find situations where there was feedback, and we found the way to eliminate that. So we know how to eliminate that problem. So I guess I would respond with that, just to you, Mayor McGarvey.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I wondered, like I said, I've seen it before. So Mr. Harris, and then
Perhaps if I could just get Ms. Johnson to add to the comments. This probably relates more to a member of council wanting to join a committee meeting by Zoom, not in person, and just that there's some notice required so that the committee can be manage the technology in advance.
Through you, Your Worship, written into the procedural bylaw is a minimum of 48 hours notice. The more notice that can be given to the chair and the staff person responsible for ensuring that the meeting is held, if it's in person, it needs to be a hybrid virtual component as well, the better, so that we can ensure that the location has the technology, or if it doesn't, that we can get it, or look for some other location if we are committing to the right of a member of a committee member to be able at their discretion to join a meeting virtually. When I suggested before there could be a bit of conflict there, it's if this is written in, that is the right of a committee member at their discretion to be able to join a meeting virtually, an in-person meeting virtually, but the meeting was proposed to be at a location where that technology and equipment isn't available, it sets up a conflict. And when I suggested before that we'd be monitoring this, it's this sort of situation that I think would be unfortunate if it unfolds, but I'm conscious and I'm just raising the issue that that's possible. So one of the ways of dealing with that is trying to find a location where the hybrid model will work. We're optimistic and think the council chambers will work based on our testing. That's not the location where all committees have met in the past.
Okay. I've got Councillor Keith and then Councillor McCann.
Thank you. Well, I certainly am supportive of this procedure bylaw that allows the individual, whether on council or at a committee meeting, to be able to use the hybrid situation, to be able to attend a virtual meeting rather than in person as to their choice. I think there's some benefits. Besides the fact we are in the year of 2022, there's going to be a learning curve to any of these new things that we do, but we have been practicing virtual on its own for the last over 2 years. So I know that we can do it. If we can put people on Mars, I'm sure we can do this. But in addition to that, I just think that there are also some other benefits to having this happen. Cost savings, for example, consultants that now would be able to provide all of that virtual information to us rather than coming in person to a council meeting. I say that is cost saving there. Another cost saving or just dedication or whatever is the way it was before COVID. Anybody on council, they had a choice. When they took their vacation, they either went away somewhere and said goodbye and weren't able to participate. Now, even when a person's on vacation, if they are so inclined when they're on council, they can make the necessary arrangements so they can partake of the virtual meeting and still be involved in that council meeting. And I think that's a benefit to the taxpayer. So I think that we are able, with a learning curve, and there will be a few learning pains, but I think that we can do it. A number of the committees that are advisory committees, I'm sure there's locations again in Parry Sound that we can make this work. So I think it's doable, and I think we should always try to remember that it is 2022, and I think we have staff and the ability to make this happen if we want it to. Thank you.
Okay, Councilor McCann.
I'm just curious. So, you talk about the Waterfront Advisory Committee, for example, say versus the museum board or the library. Is there perhaps, let's say the museum decided to go with in-person meetings and there wasn't an option to go virtual. I don't think we've discussed that yet at any point. I guess I'm wondering, is what we're discussing tonight, does I as a counselor have a right to insist that I can attend virtually a museum board meeting as opposed to having to be there in person?
I guess the question is, do we select the committee members for the museum?
Well, in this case, I'm the lone representative, but
yeah. So I don't think we select the committee members for the museum. We select you as our representative, right, but it's a separate board. So that's okay, up to their procedural bylaws or whatever they have in place. This is for our committees.
Okay, that's the difference. And my other comment, and maybe Mr. Penger could speak to this, when we talk about these hybrid systems, one of the concerns I would have, now, Mayor McGarvey, you talked about feedback and problems, but what about latency and such? What happens if you're communicating with somebody, they're trying to talk to you, but they're 20 seconds or so behind where real time is? Does that all come together somehow? I haven't really had much experience with that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think any of those situations are going to play into the success or failure of the system. It can be very distracting when you do experience that latency. It's kind of hard to comment on how this hybridized environment would really work or look in that situation. With what Ms. Johnson is proposing with the OWL camera, that should address quite a number of those issues. But again, we've come at this from a few different angles on how we can support this and minimize the risk for that feedback or the latency. The one thing that we can't control is the internet at the other end of the participants.
That's right.
So quite often they might experience latency, and we might perceive it as a degradation of service, but but the reality is that's beyond our control. The town office itself has an excellent internet connection, so we haven't seen latency caused by what we're doing at any point, but it's definitely a valid point.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, any other questions, comments on the procedural bylaw? Councillor Horn.
Just some comments in terms of in-person meetings in the council chambers. We know we're firmly in the middle of the sixth wave. Hospitalization rates are still climbing. Projection from Science Table, we're probably in this to the end of May, going into June. In terms of the council chambers, then, is councillors that attend in person, are the seats 6 feet apart? Members of the public, if they come in, are they screened? Are they to wear a mask? Are we to wear a mask? Do we rat test negative before we attend an in-person meeting? I mean, there's a number of questions that, certainly comes to mind for myself. And are we just doing this just a bit too early? Thanks.
Okay, Councillor McCann.
Well, Councillor Horn brings up a good point, and maybe this is premature. Maybe we should agree to meet virtually for a few more months, because this wave that is in effect right now will play its course out, and we're giving people the option to wear masks or do away with them. But I think it's still, a lot of people are still very concerned about it, and until we get through this. I mean, I'm hoping there's not a 7th or 8th wave, but we're going to, as Councillor Keith mentioned earlier, we're into a new reality in this day and age. Maybe it is premature to start meeting in May. Maybe we should wait another 3 months. I would be okay with that.
Okay. So, Councillor Borneman.
Well, I think the beauty of the hybrid system is that it allows people to make personal choices. Those who are uncomfortable in attending in person can attend virtually, and those who prefer to show up to a council chamber can do so. I do think that I think we've done what we've had to do for the past 2 years, but I do think that it impacts upon public participation by way of deputations and public meetings to lodge complaints about proposed zoning changes, etc. I'm not looking forward to a chamber full of people yelling, but it's part of the job. As I said, I think the beauty of this system is that it allows people to do what they're comfortable with, and so be it.
Okay. So we have a procedural bylaw in front of us with some changes, whatever, with regard to how this can unfold. I mean, if we end up, the procedural bylaw is just how it's going to function. It's not an actual date. So I'd like to focus on the procedural bylaw. Is there anything else that we need to comment on procedural bylaw? I'm not seeing anyone else. So anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? No, that's carried. Thank you. I think we'll know better probably, Mr. Harris. Maybe we'll know better in another week or whatever how this is going to work for the next meeting.
Perhaps I could, there's a couple of things colliding, and that is, we have a current protocol for COVID, and we are opening up the council chambers to in-person meetings for those that want to attend in person on the 3rd. We're bringing back the COVID protocols on the 3rd, so based on the way the town's policies, council-approved policies work at this point in time, and in response to Councillor Horn's comments, masks would be required. And we don't have the 6 feet separation, certainly with members of council and the clerk and and myself as CAO at the front, and where council sits. We could set the chairs far enough apart for guests that come, the public that attends. So council was talking about whether they want to defer going public or not, but part of what the council chambers in person will be like depends what council does with the COVID protocols on the 3rd. And if they stay currently the way they're written, then masks would be required from everybody in attendance. But all the members of council and staff in attendance.
Well, I guess the public too, if there were public in here, right?
Well, through to you, Mr. Chair, the province has not required the public to wear masks when they enter the Bobby Orr Community Center, when they enter the Stocky Center. So we've not required the public to wear masks when they're entering our buildings. It's the staff, the employees of the organization that continue to wear masks.
Okay, all right. Councillor Keith.
I was going to just move that the date be changed for when we're open to the public and be the first Tuesday of June. That would allow us to discuss whatever the issues are for the May council meetings, would allow us some time, and then change the date to the first Tuesday in June. So I move that we open the, have council meetings return to open to the public as of the first Tuesday in June.
Are you seconding that, Councillor McCann? Okay.
Yes, I am. Yeah.
All right. Any discussion around that? Councillor McCann?
Well, just to comment, I respect what Councillor Borneman said about the personal touch, and he's right. It would be great, and again, if it was a perfect world, we could meet and have that that union and a much more personal impact at the meetings. But I think it's, as Councillor Bourne and Keith have both said, I think it's just a little bit too early just yet, and we can discuss it in May going forward for June.
Any other comments? No? Okay, anyone opposed to this recommendation resolution? I don't see anyone opposed, so that's carried. So we've changed that to the 1st of June, first Tuesday in June. Okay, moved by Councillor Borneman, second by Councillor Burden, that bylaw number 2022-7240, being a bylaw to authorize a renewal purchase agreement with Top Desk Canada Incorporated for a user support ticket and inventory management software, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. All those in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Borneman and seconded by Councillor Keith, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Any discussion on this item? No? Councillor McCann?
Sorry, just to perhaps give Mr. Pingra a chance to speak to this.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially, it's a housekeeping item, renewing our licensing agreement for another year, and at which time we hope to have the entire suite fully rolled out. It's really improved the way that we track our assets, which has helped us realign the capital replacement budget. So it's been an incredibly helpful tool, and we look forward to implementing all aspects of the software.
So just as a follow-up, something with regards to support tickets and such. So users of the, maybe I'm misunderstanding something here, but does this incorporate like a tech support service or system so that if a user of a piece of equipment has a problem that they file a ticket for a request for help? Is that what we're talking about here?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Now, we haven't implemented the help desk portion of it yet.
Oh,
We
I
are
see.
still using our legacy ticketing system, as our primary focus was on the asset management portion of
All right.
the module. There's also a knowledge base portion that we've been working diligently to put into action.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Anything further? Nope. Anyone opposed to passing this bylaw? Nope, that's carried. Okay. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Backman, that the bylaw number 2022-7241, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council, be considered as read a first time. All in favor? That's carried. All members in favor of having the second and third readings? That's carried. Moved by Councilor McCann, second by Councilor Backman, that the bylaw above mentioned be considered as read a second and third time, passed, signed, and sealed. Anyone opposed to this? Nope, that's carried. Okay. Prior to adjourning, I'd like to offer the following information to the public regarding the next council meeting. The next regular meeting of council for the town of Parry Sound is scheduled for Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022 at 7 p.m. And this I thought we might have to change, but we don't. The meeting will be held via Zoom video conferencing and will be live streamed and recorded. So anyway, all regular council meetings are held at 7 p.m. on the first and third Tuesday of each month, except January and August, where only one regular meeting is scheduled. The council meeting schedule, notices of special council meetings, complete agendas and minutes, and instructions on accessing live streamed and recorded council meetings are all posted on the town's website. Go to www.parrysound.ca under news and public notices. Your TV airs council meetings on Saturday at 9:30 a.m. following a regular council meeting. And for Cogeco listings, contact www.yourtv.tv. I want to thank everyone and have a great night. Take care, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Take care.